Welcome to the show. I'm Ivory LaNoue. This is Reynolds, and we'd like to introduce to you Sedona Sunn, our newest Sedona Soul Sister. We've known Sedona for a long time and just love her, and we always hoped she would join the business, and here she is. So Sedona is an amazing healer, and she's going to really fill a void we have on the show. So glad to have you with us, Sedona. Today's topic is trusting your gifts. But before we get started with that, I want to say hello to our listeners in Quebec. We are so delighted to see you show up week after week. And thank you so much for tuning in. Let's talk about this because we see a lot of people who know they have a spiritual gift and they want to use it to help other people. But one thing that holds them back is simply not trusting what they get, whether it's psychic, empath, mediumship, healing. They simply don't trust their gifts. So I've always said, I think the basis for that is really about learning to trust your intuition, because if you trust your intuition, then everything else kind of falls into place. And even if you are not planning to be an intuitive reader, or do anything specifically with that professionally, it's still about trusting your intuition. Do either one of you have something you want to say about that you think helped you get to that point?
I had to actually have somebody sit me down and go, wake up.
So you have a gift. Hello.
I can't say this. My brilliant intuition brought that to me.
What did they say to you, Roz?
Well, it was really interesting. This situation arose because my brother, who was not very intuitive, and had no interest, went to an office party. And while he was there, they had a very well-known and well-respected intuitive who was doing, readings for the people at the party. And she took one look at my picture and she said, "Who is this? Is this your sister?" Because we did resemble each other. And he said yes. And she said, "Oh my gosh, she's just amazing. She has no idea. She has no idea everything she could be doing." And I wasn't doing it because I, didn't trust it. I was born like this. I was always doing it. So I just was like, oh yeah, this is just something I can do. So she requested just a consultation with me, not as a session, but just she could see that I, was floundering probably and needed help. And I was still pretty young. I was in my 20s and early 20s. And when I went to see her, she basically just kind of sat me down and said, "You have no idea of all of the things you could be doing. And you're clueless. You're just not getting it." And she was so right, because the one thing she told me, I remember her words so clearly. She said to me, "You have a power that will move mountains. When you make up your mind, you're going to allow that and bring that and, use it for the good of other people." And it was like stunning to me. I mean, literally, I had to go home and really mull on that for a while.
Don't you think it can be very overwhelming to be told something like that when you're young?
Yeah, especially when, I've always been kind of a bodhi-o-do person. I just see that things are happening and I go, well, I could affect that. I could help people, but not really to any depth. I just think, oh, I could do so and so, whatever that thing is, but never from the standpoint of helping people empower themselves, really. And that's what she awakened. Was she awakened, you have no idea of the things you could do to help people facilitate change in their life. So it was a stunning moment, kind of. And it's so funny because I have to always remind myself today, pay attention to what you're doing because, you could affect change in this situation that could help people achieve and rise and be where they really are trying to be, but they're struggling. So it was pretty amazing.
That's a powerful moment indeed. What about you, Sedona?
Well, I agree with Roz in the way that somebody had to tell me. I didn't know about my gifts, and I'm grateful for all the healers that have come into my life who have helped make me the healer that I am today. But I remember going to a healing session. I can't remember the exact age, but in my early 20s, and walking in, I hadn't studied healing or anything yet. And this healer told me I was very powerful and I had these special gifts, and I liked it. I liked hearing that, but I didn't know what to do with it. And I kind of didn't believe it. So in my journey, it's been like a long process of time before I could actually acknowledge that I had the gifts. So if you're hearing it and getting that reflection from other people, but you don't believe it yet, just have patience because in my experience, it does come that belief in oneself. And eventually I had to open up to that this was true. And I actually met Roz in 2014 when I moved to Sedona for the first time. And I was driving back from the East Coast. I tried living there, but it wasn't for me. So I was on my way back to California and I stopped into Sedona because I knew it was a special place. And I said, if I can find work and a place to live in 3 days, I'll stay. And so I didn't leave. I think I stayed for about 3 years. But I went to work at the Center for the New Age as a psychic. I just applied, and I wasn't sure that I truly was a psychic, but it was a job that presented. And I said, well, that's interesting. Let me try this out. I've had so many different professions. And I remember just one day I was in my office feeling like, what am I doing here? And Roz kind of knocked on the door because she was my co-psychic worker in the office next door. And she saw I was struggling a little, and she just said to me, she says, you have no idea how psychic you are. Just like her mentor had told her, here she was imparting that to me because she could see. So that was my experience. And it really does help to have a mentor or a teacher or a guide, especially when, you're feeling really uncertain about your gifts. And then I met Ivory also through the Center for the New Age and had a healing with her and a reading. And so just having a lot of experiences with really powerful healers, actually by being in the presence of someone who is a psychic, I feel can actually raise your vibration to your own psychic, intuitive feeling. And like you said, Ivory, it doesn't need to be something that you want to do as a profession. But I do believe that our consciousness is raising, that more people want to get their power back just for daily life, just for having a family. I mean, that's a challenge as it is. To have your intuition in all aspects of your life is so important. So that's kind of been my journey, is having mentors help me realize who I am.
I think that's really important. And, you both of you talking is making me have flashbacks. I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that being part of it. But something you said, Roz, like I remember being 18 years old and going to my first spiritual circle in Prescott. And it was in the top floor of the old Masonic temple, which had become something else. And so we're in this circle, and there's this famous channel who had a Danish channel that I was 18. I did not know who he was, but he was going around this big circle and like giving every single person a message, and he skipped over me. And I was partially disappointed and partially like, good, I don't want to be the focus here. And then he started to like end his event, and then he turns around and he points to me and he goes, you've got 9 diamonds. He went into this trance state. He goes, you've got 9 diamonds over your head. You're a very powerful channel. Gives me chills thinking about it, because I was kind of freaked out. And I was really embarrassed because everybody's staring at me. And I didn't know what a channel was. And this was before internet. So I'm just dating myself. But I went I went to a library and looked up what it was. And I wanted no part of that. No part of that at all. So then maybe 5 years later, I'm at a party at a doctor's house, and this psychic is there, a professional psychic. And she walked up to me and she says, you've got spiritual gifts. You need to be, are you doing that professionally? No, you need to be doing that. And it was like that stuff, like it was out of the blue and unexpected, but it just puts a little seed in your mind that, all these things I've been able to do since I was a baby, those are something special. I could actually do something with that. I just didn't, it was like you said, Roz, if you've always been able to do it, you don't really think about that as being something special. It's just something you could always do. But what really did it, having my first mentor, Belinda Howe, which I found out recently, she's become famous. I didn't even know it. Somebody's like, I came to see you because I saw you mentored with Belinda Howe. I'm like, Belinda? Yes, from Gaia TV. I'm like, I had no idea. So Belinda Howe's amazing. Hi, Belinda. And I did one-on-one classes with her, and she was so great. Like the whole thing of having somebody who's really powerful tell you that you're gifted and tell you that you've got a strong ability in certain areas and you're meant to be doing this work. But that was that was probably age 29. And I still didn't start doing anything professionally for another 3 years. That's when things really kicked in, because once you start working on clients and you get the feedback from them that you're really helping them, because I started with healing. So they're like, you could see it in them, and they would tell me, I feel so much better. Well, then you're doing something, right? Same thing if you're psychic and you're giving people insights and they're telling you, oh my gosh, you're right about that. Or that what you said was true. I know I argued that, but it's true. It happened. You get more confidence, and there's no way to bypass that part of it. Whether you get a mentor or not, you cannot bypass the experience of working on clients.
Mm-hmm.
They're nodding their heads for you. Those of you
Very
listening
true.
on podcasts.
Well, one thing I was going to mention was when we were talking about Center for the New Age, one thing that I have always really respected about that place is there are a lot of people who know that they just know that they could do this. They know that it's in there and they have it, but there aren't a lot of places for them to go and get a start at it. And one thing I always liked about that place was, that she would let you go in and help get on your feet and let you start, no matter where you were with it. If you'd worked, if you'd never worked, and that I think is a really important thing to acknowledge. If everyone, if you have these gifts and you're just busting out with it, that you're supposed to be doing this work, you still have to find the venue that will be receptive to you doing it. And that was one thing that I always liked about the center, was you could go there and you could, get your feet wet. I didn't go there cold like that, but I know a lot of people who did. And it works. It works. And it works because, it's a supportive environment too. And I think when you have gifts, the other thing to acknowledge, when you have these gifts and, you've maybe been, for lack of a better word, kind of poo-pooed by friends, by family, by people who kind of don't get it. They don't feel that intuitive, like, gangbuster, let me rush forward and do this thing. And so it's pretty powerful to walk into someplace and they will, going on their intuition, let you get your feet wet and get started and have an office and all that.
And
So-
it is hard. It is hard to find a place that will do that. Most places want to test your skill. They want to know where you've worked. So it is important to find a venue and like you said, Raz, get your feet wet, because at a center like that, you're going to see a lot of people. We used to see maybe 7 to 9 people a day on average, which is kind of a lot for readings.
It was busy,
I know Roz and I were going home like, oh, wiped out. And I don't do that to myself anymore. I don't see that many people, but it was good, and a huge variety of people. So I think it's a good idea to find a place like that, a center where clients are sent to you and you just have to jump in there and do it. Was there anything else for you, Sedona, that you think really helped you just really trust that you're helping people?
Well, when you talked about working with clients, that is definitely a key, because I've started to compile stories of things that have happened, things that I've said, that will happen, things that I've held the energy for people to happen. And I paint a lot. This is a new avenue that I've added to my healing services. And I actually do a lot of art with people as well, where I have them do art, whether it's just a pencil sketch in my office. So holding the space. So I say that the paintings come true. So it's very powerful, because what I believe so strong in my practice, not just in my healing practice, but in my life in general, is the power of intention. Like, that is so important. So if you state an intention and you fully hold that intention in the light and believe in that intention, it will manifest. Time is a little bit different in this world. We have to wait at times for just the right moment, but just the power of intention. I also was remembering a circle that I was in. Let's see, I think it was around my, late 20s. That's that Saturn return period, which you talked about, the age 29, age 28, 29, where it's a reevaluation of your life. You've grown from being in your family, you've started a little bit of maybe a career, you're finished university, and then you start to go, what am I here for? So this happened. I was in this circle. I was about 29. I had founded a full moon meditation. I'd never heard of that before, but I was eager to go. And that's the other thing about this, is you have to be eager and courageous. Because if I had fear and thought, ooh, I don't know, full moon meditation, and I hadn't gone, I wouldn't have had the experience that I had. So I went, and it was in this woman's home, and her husband led this guided meditation from a book. And it was having that experience with this couple where they worked together. And she was definitely a strong healer and a homeopath, and he led the meditations, and I just lifted up. Like, that was really the beginning of my journey. And it was funny because her license plate said guru, and I had no idea what that meant. And there's a lot of controversy about what is guru and who can be a guru. Well, basically, guru just means teacher. So you have to take it in every context. But it was a beautiful experience. She actually did some rituals with me, where she created like a sacred bath and put like herbs in this bath. And it was basically like a baptism. I was like being reborn into my my spiritual self. And I'll just say that I was speaking with this man from South Africa, and we were talking about gifts because he saw me and he said, "You have something." And he said, in our culture, in the tribal lands, when children have gifts, and all children have gifts, but they have different ones, the elders will look at that child and say, "Oh, that child's gift is this," and then they'll mentor them from a very young age. And that is kind of missing a lot in kind of America, that we don't have. We just put the kids in school, but the classrooms are too big that the teacher can't always give that one-on-one attention. So I do hope that the children coming into the world now will get to know their gifts sooner than later, because if you don't get that early childhood mentoring, what happens in general, and for me, is that you shut down the gifts and they only reemerge later in life. You could be 29, you could be 59, and it doesn't matter when they come, because that moment is always a precious moment. So age doesn't matter, just being really open to knowing who you are. And that's a little bit of my journey with my gifts.
I'm really glad you brought up that whole thing of
Nice.
age doesn't matter, because I find myself talking to people. They're so funny sometimes, because they'll be like, "I think I'm too old. I really want to do this, but I think I'm too old." "How old are you?" 43. I'm like, I was over 50 when I started doing mediumship professionally. And I honestly had like shut a lot of that down and just ignored all the spirit activity. But I was going to tell you that something that really helped. Let me backtrack a little bit. You can study with somebody, or you can study on your own, and then you get to the point where you need to do a service for another person, and people will freeze. And they're really afraid to go past that point. They're really afraid to put themselves out there. And I loved that when I did my mentoring with Suzanne Wilson for honing my mediumship skills, I would go in for a class, and she would, halfway through the class, the phone would ring and she'd say, "You're going to do a reading for a good friend of mine." And she wouldn't have told me, so I didn't have time to like lose sleep over it and freak out. And I would have a little panic attack, and she's like, "It's going to be fine. She's really kind. She's got gifts too, so she's going to give you great feedback." And it really was good. And I like that. And so with my own students, I early on have them give a little mini reading to me, and then eventually to other people that I know will be very kind and give them good constructive feedback that'll help them feel confidence and do better in their future readings. So even for myself now, when I do mediumship, one thing I always feel is step by step how in my body how a person died. And that's one of the ways to just evidence who the spirit is. But sometimes I feel things, I have no idea what it is. And I like to ask the client afterwards, "Would you mind telling me how this person passed?" And then, "Oh, okay, so that's what that is." And so if I feel it again, then I know for the next time that it comes up. And that's part of it too, like constantly building your confidence. It's not a boom, you get it, and you've got all the confidence you're going to have. Roz has been doing this for what, 46 years now?
Long time.
46 years. She's got a lot of confidence. You know, it took a long time for her to get where she is, where she just knows, you know, that what she gets is true. And that's true for all of us. Like, it takes time to build up to that point. So don't expect yourself to have that 100% trust in your gifts right away, but just start the process. And honestly, you're going to have to put yourself out on a limb, take that leap of faith, and start working on other people, and whatever your gift or combination of gifts are. There's no bypassing it.
I think you have to, at the same time, you know, you have to realize, and I always kind of tell people this, like, you know, I'm communicating with a being, a spirit being, and they are not under any requirement to communicate back with me, you know. So this is very important sometimes for people to realize. Sometimes people come in, especially in mediumship, and they're so longing to contact their loved one that they've missed so much, their friend, their family, etc. And there is an aspect of that we have to acknowledge, that, you know, that kind of has its own flow of energy. And sometimes I find that they will communicate, but they'll communicate on the subject they want to communicate of. They're not there specifically, you know, they're there at your request, and they're not there specifically to do something necessarily for you. It's actually for the client and for them too. And it's kind of an interesting thing. I find that the more I do that, the more work like that I do, the more that I have to acknowledge that the spirit speaks based on their desire and need. And that's hard for people.
But that takes confidence too, to just know sometimes I'm not going to be able to bring a spirit in. Sometimes they're not going to speak. There's been times spirit walks in and they just stand there and they don't say anything, or they peek in repeatedly, but don't come in all the way. And I just know I don't have control over that. And I'm not going to beat myself up about it or think, oh, I'm no good as a medium because this happens. That happens. So, you know, those are the things, again, no matter what your gift is, and gifts can be a wide form. And usually if a person has one gift, they usually have more than one. So you've got multiple gifts going. Sedona, do you have a last thought on this you want to add?
I just wanted to say, you know, when you said to your students, you have them do a reading. Well, I was in Roz's office one time and she'd been mentoring me a lot. And she turned to me and she says, now you give me a reading. And I froze. And she said, you're ready. You're ready. So I think just stating that intention, you know, if you're looking to do this work, of saying, I'm ready to receive, I'm ready to have the insights come to me, just stating those intentions and then trusting. That's what really helped me. And I love what I do. I love working with people, and I love being a part of the Sedona Soul Sisters. You gave me an office here. You need a space to practice, and I'm really happy to join you both ladies.
She got the purple room, as you can see, a highly coveted purple room.
I love that color.
I know you do. I like the gold overlay, the sparkles on top of it.
I like the gold.
I want to say one more thing, and that you brought it up, Sedona, and it's really important. Like, it's scary to give a reading to your teacher, and it's scary to start doing readings, even practice readings with people. And I tell this story, it's a true story. Again, when I mentored with Suzanne Wilson, at the end, she said, now I want you to go out and do 5 practice readings. And she hooked me up with a group of people who would be willing to do it. And I ended up doing more like 40. And the reason is I needed that to get to a place where I felt more confidence in my abilities. And it was really about getting to a place where enough people, when I said, would you have paid for this reading? They're like, oh, yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, happily. That's where I was. And then I knew even then I didn't want to start charging, but I thought, you're being silly. Your mentor told you you're ready to fly. You've delayed it months now. You need to just do it. And so I did it. And that's when I met Roz.
And we all have the philosophy and the thought of, you know, everything with love. Mm-hmm. You have to have that motivation of love and kindness and trying to help people to really make it work for you and for them. Oh, I say a little prayer every day in my office, and I just say, send me the people that need my help today and let me be of service.
That's important to all of us at Sedona Soul Sisters, for sure. I think that's one thing that draws us together, is just a sincere desire to make a difference, to help people. in any way we can. I want to thank you all for tuning in and joining us today. We're delighted to have you. If you have questions, you can always ask them. The email address is in the show description. And if you'd like to know more information about us or our services, please visit us at SedonaSoulSisters.com. Subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss one fabulous episode, and tune in next Friday when the topic is toxic energy environments. So if you work in a toxic environment, your home is a toxic environment. We're not talking about nuclear waste. We're talking about toxic energy that you need to recognize it and know how to deal with it and when to walk away. So we're going to talk about that next week. In the meantime, we hope you have an enlightening week.